No mother should ever have to bury their child, in the ground or otherwise. But I had to. I had to bury the relationship me and my daughter had for the first 6 years of her life. She isn't cold and dead in the ground, if that's what you're thinking. She's actually in the room right next to this one right now, probably dangling her feet, swinging them back and forth as most children do at the age of 6, when adult chairs are still too big for them. They are probably playing good cop, bad cop right now. One offering her treats for the truth, the other being a complete asshole to her fragile little mind. I don't know why I'm writing this, what purpose it will serve. They already made it quite clear they didn't want my side of the story. They only want hers. But I'll write it anyway. Maybe someone will read it and believe my words. I know she didn't mean it. I know she doesn't understand. And I know it was my brother, Craig, that did this to her. But I'll get to that a little later. I guess I should start with a little family history. My name is Anne Dunlop. Me and my brother Craig were born in 1960 in the little town of Dark Bay, Newfoundland. We were born into a good family. A loving family that cared about us and always tried to teach us the right things. I was a pretty normal kid, but my brother, I guess you could say he was a little off. When me and all our friends, we were twins, and Dark Bay was small, so we had the same friends, would go out, hang out, and shoot the breeze about TV shows, Dick Tracy comics, and such. Craig would always leave early. Always said he liked his space. We all knew he wanted to be alone later on. But at a young age, it really confused us. Anyway, time passed and the two of us graduated from Clarabeth High School. I went off and became a nurse, then moved back to Dark Bay to raise a family. Craig went to work on the boats, catching whatever they told him to catch. I seldom spoke to him, but when I did, he told me everything. Told me he had bought a cabin in the woods, that he didn't have a wife or kid, and that he lived alone up there, at the end of Bank Street. I left it at that. I knew he liked to be alone, and he knew he was happy alone, so it didn't bother me. In 1984, my daughter was born. Me and my husband named her Mariana, after his favorite aunt, who had passed on a week or so before she was born. She was a gorgeous little baby, with a shock of bleached blonde hair, big blue eyes. Me and my husband adored her. She was our life. About 6 or 8 months later, Craig was committed to the local mental hospital. Apparently he had wandered into town drunk one night and told some guys at a bar he was hearing things, seeing things. He was diagnosed with a dissociative disorder in which, like I said, you hear and see things that aren't there. Just like that professor in the United States who thought he was cracking secret government codes, but none of it was real. Anyway, that made me a little sad. But life continued as usual. I kept working in the Dark Bay Hospital, and my husband kept teaching the little munchkins down in 1st grade. We were a happy family. I went to see Craig every so often. I was the only person he would really talk to. To everyone else, he would just babble on about the end of the world. And all things apocalyptic. But to me, he would just sit and laugh about old times. "Do you remember the time, Anna Banana?" he would always say. It's Strangely, he seemed happy too. He had this glimmer in his eye that reminded me of when we were kids. And he would shoot his dead-eye BB gun at cans of soda he had perched on our fence posts. Also a happy time. Anyway, Craig always seen pictures of Mariana, but he never really took it further than that. And I liked it that way. I always thought that being in a place like that might warp her, make her scared of her own shadow, you know? Things stayed like this for 6 years, until finally Craig said, "Anne, I want to see my niece." In a very serious tone, I told him I'd bring her on my next visit. I'm an idiot. That following week, I told Mariana she was going to meet her Uncle Craig, and that he was a sick man. She asked, "What kind of sick, Mommy?" And I pointed to my noggin. I was surprised to see that she understood. Very surprised. So I piled into the family car and off we went. We pulled up to the big hospital about 15 minutes later. We got out of the car, went inside, and went to Craig's ward. When we got there, he was sitting on the edge of his bed, looking out the window. Odd. They struck it off immediately. She loved him. Me and my husband barely got a word in. They were laughing and joking to kill themselves. I was happy to see he had found someone else he could relate to. After a few hours, it came time for supper, and me and my husband wanted to leave. But the two couldn't be separated. We decided on getting takeout and bringing it back to his room. "Oh, go on, Anne. I can take care of Mary while you're gone." "Yeah," Mariana added at the end. So it was decided. We were gone about a half hour. Fuck, I'm starting to cry. Okay, about a half hour. And when we came back, it was like Mariana was a different person. She even spoke differently. We ate and left. But before we did, my brother hauled a small blue box out from under his bed. "Here, Mary, I want you to have this." She nodded a strange, somber nod and took the box. Then we left. It took a couple of days for me to realize what the problem with my daughter was. She was acting like Craig. Exactly like him in every single way. She even stopped going out after school to her friend's house to play. All she did was sit in the backyard and play with that thing that Craig had given her. On the 4th day, I went out to her and asked her, "Mariana, what did Uncle Craig give you at the hospital? What was in that box?" Without looking up, she said, "Look, Mommy." It was a small porcelain tea set, equipped with show plate, 2 cups, a sugar and milk dispenser, a saucer, and a large teapot. The pieces had gold handles and rims, with little cherub-like boy children holding a bow and a quiver of arrows. The pieces were finely painted. "Oh my, how very nice," I said. I hated that tea set right away. Honestly, it creeped me out. But I let her keep it. The next day is when Abner Caulfield disappeared. He was a boy in Mariana's grade. He had been at her 6th birthday party, as a matter of fact. A lot of people looked for him, but he was nowhere to be found. That day when I got home, I seen that Mariana was once again in the backyard. She looked at me like I was some sort of alien creature. "Hey, Mommy, how was your day?" It was fine, I replied. Then I noticed she had a new doll. A little boy with coveralls. Did Daddy buy that for you? I asked her. Uh-huh, she said. His name is Drew. I walked away and let her continue her tea game in her own little fantasy world. Things continued that way for another week. She would play in the backyard with her 3 dolls, pouring their tea, eating imaginary biscuits, little girl stuff. Then another child disappeared. This time it was Jane Donovan. The town was in an uproar. They all thought we had a child murderer in our midst. And in a way, they were right. When I got home on that day, today, Mariana wasn't in the backyard, and my husband wasn't home. They were here. Mariana was seen at school, leading Jane into the woods, then returning alone, but clutching a little female doll. The police think my little girl is helping this child murderer, but I know better. I know now how Craig had spent so much time alone. He was never really alone, you see. That day, in the hospital, he had done something to her. I don't want to call it magic, but that's the only word I can think of that suits this. Anyway, that's my story. I might be dead when you read this. Shooting cops and getting a suspect out of a police station isn't easy, but I'm gonna try. Fuck. Why doesn't she just turn them into friends and save me this trouble? Wish me luck, whoever you are. P.S. I hate that porcelain tea set.